Yep.
of Ask DJ. All right, man. Question number 1. Let's have it.
All right. Which firearms instructor had the greatest impact on you, your training, and mindset? This came from Babu in Columbia, South Carolina. BOBBU, unless you type.
BOBBU.
Unless it's Bobby and he just misspelled his name.
I don't think people can misspell their own name. All right. Well, cool. All right. Which fire instructor had the most impact on me?
Yep.
All right.
Your training and mindset.
That's a good question. I'll say this. Let's see. I don't know that it was just one. So, from being a private, day one, and learning in the basic training environment the importance of my rifle, what it meant to me, having a continued walk on this planet of ours, being able to walk upright and fog a mirror still. That's where it all started. For me, prior to that, I think firearms were interesting, intriguing, and for me, I kind of got my information from my grandfather, and that was pretty limited, I think, because of my age and perceived maturity. The firearms aspect of that was, prior to the military, was just merely appeasing curiosity, and then there's that excitement that you get with the bullet shooting and the noise and the recoil, and then where did the bullet hit on the target, how close was it. So my grandfather helped me with the respect of the firearm relative to it could kill you, so don't be messing around with it. Make sure that it's unloaded, keeping your finger off the trigger. But that really didn't take an impact. It didn't really sink in until basic training happened. So with basic training, even though you're being forced to do things and made to do things that you don't really understand, I think at a primal level, just at that self-preservation level, you start to get it. So weapons maintenance, how to carry your rifle, what to do with it when you had to use both hands, just the practical use of that gun, in that environment started everything. And then when you get into your weapons qualification and then using that weapon, in close quarters environments, and, seeing that it has some drawbacks, the length of the barrel, and having to use both hands, keeping it up on your shoulder, cheek well and stuff, you start to see, wow, it's not like a one-size-fits-all wonder tool, and it could have some drawbacks. And then hearing what the instructors were saying was one thing. Internalizing it, what it meant to me to stay alive, was a whole nother thing. And I think that's just personal and individual. And it affects, obviously it affects people differently. For me, I really internalized it. It was something that really hit home. But that's in a military application. When you get out of the military, or when you carry in a civilian environment, even if you're in the military, the rules kind of change. There's this thing called liability and court system, and rules where you can go, where you can go, and don't pull your firearm out. In the Army, carry your gun when you do stuff all the time. It's not a big deal. In training and stuff, or overseas. Come here, it's kind of different. If there was a civilian instructor for me, it would be, not that I ever met him, but the writings of Jeff Cooper and then John Farnham. The way that they convey their information resonated with me. Their passion, conviction, enthusiasm. For me, it hit right here. I'll tell you this, John Farnham has got to be one of the most well-spoken instructors I've ever met. Men I've ever met. Just take instructor all the way out. Men I've ever met. If you ever have a chance to take a class from John Farnham, I would say I would ask you to do it. I demand you do it. He's a classic. He's a renaissance man of the personal defense shooting world. His use of famous sayings and poetry as it relates to what you are doing it's impressive. It hit me on a really deep level, not just the stand here, shoot this, hold it this way because I said so. For me, he wrapped around the meaning of continued existence and purpose as it relates to that firearm. So, anyway, it was a really big impact on me. I wish I could say it was just one. I mean, still to this day, I'll read Colonel Cooper's personal Principles of Personal Defense. It's just and it seems like every time I read it, I pick up on something that I really just didn't pick up on before. Maybe it has a different meaning now. Maybe that's because of experience and maturity and where you are in your life, what's important to you. John Farnham, definitely the man who's still walking for my civilian side. John Farnham. The writings of Colonel Cooper, and I think I was very fortunate to have some really, really top-notch sergeants in the military who took time to explain and to bring meaning and context to the content that they were providing. And that's kind of what I hope to return, is provide context and meaning. That's kind of why I don't like these generalized questions, because there's so many variables. Anyway, that's my answer, I think. All right. That's a good question, by the way. A real good question. Made me think on that one. All right, question number 2.
All right, number 2 comes from Chase out of Delray Beach, Florida.
Flow Rider.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I've heard you mention in several videos that the rifle you would grab for zombies would be an AK. What is your reasoning for choosing an AK over an AR in this type of situation?
Well, Chase, that's pretty easy for me. It's a 30 caliber round. And if all things are equal, the magazine capacity of an AR is 30, although I only load 28. And the magazine capacity of an AK is 30. But the factor that just is the tipping point for me is that platform is undeniably reliable. That AK is going to go bang. And within the context of shooting zombies, it'll be pretty accurate. So, 30 caliber round, and it's extremely reliable. That's why I would take it to the zombie fight. I mean, with the AR, depending on the AR, your tolerances are a lot tighter. And if you've got a gas impingement versus a piston, you're going to have, the build-up, and you have a higher margin of having some type of stoppage. And I haven't found that in an AK. That's why.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Last question comes from Ghost65 out of Mount Vernon, Washington.
Who would name their child Ghost?
I don't know.
65.
Some guy likes ghosts.
All right, cool.
My girlfriend has her CCW permit but won't carry concealed. How do I convince her to carry? I've tried everything I can think of to convince her, but she still won't do it. I've been carrying concealed for over 6 years. I've offered to buy concealed carry purses, clothes, holsters, etc.
Well, that's where you're messing up. You can't convince her. Carrying concealed in this manner, carrying for personal protection, is a personal decision. And there are a lot of people who are pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, pro-liberty and freedom, who don't carry. And that's a personal decision. You can't force someone to do that. Now, I'm kind of picking up between the way that you wrote the question, and that picking up that you care a lot about her, and you want her to have the best advantages working in her favor to survive a potentially deadly encounter. And I get that. I do. That's very admirable. But you can't convince her. It has to be her decision, just like it's my decision, just like it's your decision. And that's a personal decision all the way around. Now, what I will tell you is, the more that a person uses a gun, the more comfortable they become. So instead of, again, I'm not there, so I'm just kind of throwing my own thoughts into this, but instead of trying to convince her to carry, have some fun, have a little date nights, date Saturdays, and go shoot, and make it enjoyable. Encourage, congratulate, and look at it not from the standpoint of, if you don't get it right today, you could die tonight, in that you're here, we're spending time together, and you're learning to become comfortable with that gun. And the more comfort that she has with shooting the gun, the more comfort she'll have with carrying the gun. So yeah, we could stereotype and say the reason that people are not comfortable with carrying a gun is that they're not comfortable with the operation, that they feel like it's going to go off in a holster. They're not comfortable with their ability, their skill set of operating that gun without hurting themselves or hurting someone else. Uncomfortable comes from not being in control. And so what you see a lot of times is, and you can see it when they're shooting, is that gun is actually controlling them, in that they're not managing the recoil, and they're acting timid with the gun. Well, in essence, the gun is controlling them. When that person learns through experience to control that weapon, comfort comes. But if you force the issue and they're not comfortable with it, then if they do it, they're kind of doing it against their will, and the frustration level skyrockets. It's exacerbated across the board. And those of you who are listening, the day that you started carrying concealed, like the first time that you put that gun on your hip loaded, I'm sure there was a little bit of apprehension, like, whoa, what is this? Maybe a little back sweat going on. Like, okay, cool, I feel it there, but all right. We're off and running now, okay. And then after a while, it's not really a big deal, and then to the point where you're like, watch, wallet, keys, gun, and all right, let's move on. That same feeling you had the first time you walked out your front door with your gun on your hip, with your permit in your hand, or the first time you did it. Everyone can see me. Everyone sees I've got this gun on there. It's like a lighthouse on my hip. And now you can look back and say, that's not true. Nobody really even looks. Nobody even is noticing. It was just me all that time. That's where we as concealed carriers, we in the gun world, we have to be that missionary of liberty, if you will, where we empathize with those who don't mind having a gun and maybe shooting a gun, but they're a little nervous or uncomfortable with carrying a gun. And not to force the issue, but to aid in relieving that uncomfortability. This is where it would be awesome to see a lot more congratulations, like in these forums of knowledge that are out there, instead of ostracizing those who don't carry the brand we carry, who don't carry the caliber that we carry, don't use the holster we carry. The Second Amendment is about having the right to keep and bear an arm, or arms, if you're fortunate to have the money to do that. To have, if we have a tyrannical government that we have to resist, well, the first thing is having a gun. Once we have that gun, getting from having a gun to carrying a gun every day can be a long, long journey, depending on who you are, depending on your background, your moral value system, how you were raised, how you see the gun, how you see yourself with a gun. So I kind of went around a long way to answer this question, but encourage, congratulate, and role model the way things should be done, and a little less convincing. But I get it, man. I get it. I mean, I'm tracking with you on the, if you don't get it today, you could die tonight. But if you want to win the war, you may have to concede some battles. I think it all goes back to the way you approach it. And if you can encourage, congratulate, and more importantly, role model, they have a better chance of being convinced. So, that'll be my take on it. But you get what I'm saying? Like that, those forums are like, whoo, well, I've got the Whackmaster 6000. By God, that's the worst thing ever in the world. You ought to just choke yourself and die in a pit of boiling oil. I carry the Whackmaster 6004. Far superior. As opposed to, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you've got a gun. We need to help get guns in the hands of more responsible, freedom-loving patriots. And you're another shining example and a role model now of why they should. You're not going to expand the strength of the Second Amendment by constantly beating each other up on gear issues. It reminds me, I wish I could remember what forum it was, but there was and somebody watching probably knows exactly what I'm talking about, but there was a lady who got on a forum, and single mom, I think she was in like low income type of house, was not of great means, let's put it that way. And she said, hey, I bought my first handgun, just, wanted to protect myself. Where could I get some good training on it? And one of the people say, well, what gun did you get? And she said, well, I got a High Point. And then the litany of derogatory comments that came after that about how much of a crappy garbage of a gun she had bought. And if she'd have just saved up a little bit more money, she could have got this. You could have used this. You just wasted your money. You should just throw that thing in the trash. And here's a lady who doesn't have a whole lot of money, not a whole lot of industry experience like you guys do. You know who I'm talking to. But she wanted to defend her family. She wanted a tool that could help her. And then she comes to a reputable forum and she gets all but beaten down about how bad of a decision in her product selection that she got. I wish it had been me on that forum when that was all going down, because I'd have said, sweetheart, I'll train you for free. Thank God you've got something. Let's meet up, let's run that thing, and then we'll go from there. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there are far superior products out there. I get it. But she took it on herself to exercise her Second Amendment rights and purchase a tool that she could use to defend her family. And when she came looking to us as a community as a whole, we tore her up. We just can't afford to do that, guys. Can't do it. This is how liberty erodes. This is how freedom slowly slips away. And it's up to us as the missionaries of liberty to keep going out into the highways and the byways and preaching the good message of freedom and liberty, because we are the last bastion of hope in this world. Anyway, I got a little too deep on that. That's 3 questions, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, well, so look, a lot of people are saying, hey, where do I get your products and that kind of stuff? And legallyconcealed.org is where you go. That's the website's name. I'll tell you this. Our Sheepdog Society has every product that we've ever done, every bit of information we've ever put out in a clear and concise manner, and you can watch it all from start to finish. There's tons of courses in there. And we're getting away from from selling like this DVD and that DVD, because there's so much that people want and need. We just put it all in one spot and make the price just as cheap as we can make it. So if you become a Sheepdog Society member, and you can do that through legallyconcealed.org, or you can go to sheepdogsociety.org, we put it 33 cents a day. That's it. It's $10 a month, and you get access to everything. You can watch the AR-15s, the AKs, the everyday course, bolt guns, home defense, and there's so many more that are on there. Because all we're trying to do is just get the information out. Try to give you what you need, so that when you're talking to those new converts to the Second Amendment, the people who are in search of how to exercise their God-given liberty, you have that much more information to help steer them in the right direction. So I'd encourage you to go out to our website, become a Sheepdog Society member. It's 33 cents a day. It's $10 a month. And you can have access to everything that we have. I just want to put that out there. You guys can do what you want, but that's the cheapest way we can get everything out, and we're still making new products. It's really blowing up. We've got a lot of people in there, and a lot of good information circulating around. So I encourage you to do that. Don't forget to check out the radio show, Snapchat. We've been trying to put together a new Snapchat story today. You guys tend to like those pretty well. And then let's see. Make sure that that you like us on Facebook and that Instagram thing. Taking a lot of pictures and stuff, put it out there. Try to break up the different facets of what we do around here into different types of social media. I guess men are like waffles. I'm trying to compartmentalize. It makes it easier for me. Can't do the whole spaghetti thing. Like Snapchats where I just get stupid and comical. The radio shows where I talk about life and a little bit of politics, dad stuff. Instagram is where I take pictures of the life I want you to think that I have. Don't laugh, you know we all do it. No, pictures of things that are going on. And then Facebook, just a lot of information and then commenting on things that are going on and the absurdities that are going on in Washington today. So try to log into all that stuff, man. Stay tuned because we got more coming out. Sorry about today. I know it was pretty deep, but good God, man, those were some good questions. You did really good today on those questions.
Oh, yeah.
So my hippie didn't have a whole lot of snappy comments today. I like that, getting kind of deep. All right, guys. Well, as always, stay alert and practice often. You see, I didn't knock it over today.
Not over. Yep.
All right, see you.